So we've got retail WoW up here, and apparently 10.2.6 is coming out sometime in the next 12 months. Holy shit. It's a double-edged sword going radio silence because sure, you build the hype, but you also have to back that hype up. So we'll see what happens. And then we've also got Season of Discovery down here. Where we at? Level 40, right? This one. And right here, this line is very telling because we've divided the World of Warcraft community in half. And I guess what I'm wondering is, are these people coming back? Are they going to come back to retail? I think my stupid ass always believed that people would go play it for a little bit and they'd get that hit of nostalgia and then they'd come back to retail. But I got to tell you, with this Season of Discovery keeps dropping new and exciting features, then Cataclysm Classic's coming, along with level 60 Season of Discovery, which is the peak of it, right? And then right around that time, we drop War Within. Now, obviously, there's people that go back between the two. That's a lot of Warcraft for most people, though, I feel like. If you're a person like me that likes to play other games or kind of enjoys being done with WoW at a point, then I don't think you're jumping between these two. Also, I've been surprised at how my friends who are playing Season of Discovery or some version of Classic, they have no interest in retail. Now, that's anecdotal because it's just my people, but what about you people? Are you guys at all interested in this new War Within? Do you plan on buying it and playing it? No doubt a certain percentage does, but maybe it's a lot lower than I think it is. Is the World of Warcraft family forever divided? That makes me so fucking sad for a host of reasons. Not the least of which is I'm always hoping for a revival of Warcraft PvP in retail, which means we need a ton of new blood. And I got to tell you, a lot of the new players that I know come back, try retail and think, yeah, I'm good. That's a little too much for me. Go try Season of Discovery and they love it. Now, does that nostalgia and that world, is it sustainable with, all this stuff going on? So we relaunched regular Classic, and that was a massive hit. And now we've got Season of Discovery Classic. It seems like they can just keep doing variations of Classic over and over. Now, we don't have the official numbers. And so all we can kind of do is peek between the cracks through polls like this and kind of draw some assessments based on feedback. It's just the best we've got. But if you look here, almost half the player base is playing Classic or at least prefers some version of Classic. And I was wondering to myself, what is the appeal down here that draws so much of the community? Because in Dragonflight, it's pretty easy to gear. You've got things like dragon riding, which is a big hit for a lot of people. You've got all the streamlined looking for group features. There's tons of classes. There's tons of races. It seems like we're very quickly moving to a point where every race will be able to be every class. You got skins and transmogs. It just seems like there's a lot, and yet almost half of the community prefers these modes. Of course, with anything, there's a ton of opinions and thoughts on this topic. But as you read through all these responses, there are some very consistent themes that come up. The first one, and the one that just stands out the most, especially as you read through the responses, it just becomes crystal clear that nostalgia is a huge, huge part of it. Humans are primates and we love dopamine. And one of the best ways to get some dopamine is to hit those neural pathways that have been consistently developed. And if you grew up playing WoW, then you going back into that world that gave you that dopamine, you fire up those neural pathways and you get some more. You've seen other content creators come out and say they're just repackaging old products and selling them again. Well, it turns out that nostalgia sells damn well, and it attracts people by the boatloads. And there's a lot of angles to the nostalgia, it seems. You have people that played World of Warcraft before and they just prefer that old world. They'll say it feels like home, right? Which tells you right away they're comfortable there. That's where they grew up, so to speak. And then you have the people that participated in old versions of World of Warcraft, but they were either very young or they really didn't understand what they were doing. So they never, ever got to really get the good gear, get the cool shit. And now that they go back, they can do all those things that they never achieved. But make no mistake, nostalgia sells, and it sells damn well. And I'm not convinced that Blizzard can't just repackage Classic over and over like they already have. And it's been wildly successful. I don't see any reason why it won't continue to be. Another appeal of Classic seems to be immersion. In other words, they feel like the retail version of World of Warcraft doesn't feel like a World of Warcraft at all. And it starts with the way you experience the world. And they talk about running around in zones, seeing other players, and then seeing that player later on. Whereas in retail, yeah, they'll fill a zone full of other players through cross-realm zoning technology. But they're just filling that area up so you can feel like you're around other players. Those other players aren't actually part of your community, part of your server, etc. And so they really like the being on a server with their community, which is completely gone in retail. Another issue I saw brought up when we're talking about the World of Warcraft is the way you experience it. And a lot of the Classic players seem to really enjoy the running around, being on the ground, getting a group and going around and doing things actually in the world or running around the World of Warcraft. Whereas when you talk about how you experience the world of retail, you basically thrust yourself over the entire world. And it's not to say that both of these experiences can't be enjoyable, but they are very different. And a lot of the players seem to really enjoy the slower pace and the opportunity that you get in Classic to actually see the trees, see the animals, be in the actual world rather than the world just kind of being something you just shoot around in to get from objective to objective to get your chores done. This issue is a real divider between these communities because any effort to cut back flying, the retail community throws a fit. I mean, an absolute fit. And they really seem to like the ability to mount up. I mean, it's to the point now in retail that you hop on your dragon to fly from mob to mob during a quest. That's how much flight is a part of the game now. You don't even have to get off your mount to mine ore anymore. You pretty much do everything from the saddle. And that's a very different experience than flying out to a zone, running around in that zone, and then when it's time to fly back, you fly back. And it seems like a lot of the Classic players really enjoy actually being in the world and a part of it rather than just pulsing around it. Another issue that got brought up consistently when talking about the World of Warcraft is how Disney-ish retail feels. And when you think about going from Strathholm to Dragon Daycare, you don't have to run around in these spaces long before you see there was a dramatic shift in tone. So not only is the way you experience the world not that immersive, but everything from the story to the art, it does not feel to them like it's the World of Warcraft. And to be quite frank, it's hard to disagree with them on that because that's a feeling I share as well. So the first major theme was nostalgia. And with that kind of comes what I talked about with how the world is experienced. But I'd say the second major theme that I saw is that Classic WoW's a lot easier. Now, before you take that as some type of condescension, just hear me out. Because first off, there's former retail gladiators, multi-gladiators, who are preferring Classic right now and the PvP in Classic. So don't take it as some shot that bad players prefer Classic, although that is absolutely true. And people that are not as capable of managing all of the stimulation of retail are having a much better time in Classic. And the amount of shit you have to deal with between dungeons and raids is night and day difference. And what they really seem to like about Classic is huge parts of the community can engage in high level in game. Whereas in retail, Mythic rating and high Mythic plus is all built around the sweatiest motherfuckers on the planet. But if you want to draw people from Classic back into retail, it seems that a lot of people feel like the difficulty's just been ratcheted up to a point where it's not even fun. And let's be honest, even the casual content, like a heroic dungeon in retail WoW, has more mechanics in it than some of the raids in Classic. And you can come into retail and do easier content, but you're not going to get the good gear. Whereas you can go to Classic WoW, do easier content, and get best in slot. And again, that's not some shot at the Classic community. That's just the reality of the situation. And staying in the too complicated lane, another complaint, and a very consistent complaint from the Classic community, is that class design in retail is fucking bonkers. I mean, the amount of CDs that you have is insane. And your abilities only feel good when you pop CDs. Every class in retail is built around using your burst cooldowns. Mythic Plus is about drawing up a whole bunch of shit, popping your cooldowns and burning it around. High level arena and PvP is all about trading cooldowns. You know what they like about Classic is when they hit their button, it does something. Whether they're big cooldowns up or not, it feels good to hit that button. Whereas in retail, until your big cooldown comes up, then everything just feels like a filler ability. It doesn't feel good to hit. The abilities in Classic, according to a lot of the Classic people, actually feel good to hit. And I got to tell you, this is something that I completely agree with them on. And on top of that, everybody's got two uses of everything. I mean, melee classes don't even feel like you're fighting a melee class, especially a PvP, because they've got two charges of charge and a jump and a 40-yard stun and a 20-yard fear, and then they can disarm, and then they're immune to it's just insane, all this shit that's going on, and that's from one character. You throw people in a dungeon, and there's so much shit going on, it's hard to see what the boss mechanics are. Now, there's a spectrum here, because I'm a retail player, and one of the things I don't like about Classic is, for me, the parry, miss, dodge combat of Classic is a little boring. But I can certainly understand that the superhero laser light show that's going on in retail is a little bit too much. I am hoping there's some middle ground between the two that we can find, and I think there have been expansions that have been closer to that than others, but most certainly retail is at the other end of the extreme. No doubt, and I can definitely sympathize with that position. And so here comes War Within soon, right? And look at what's going on with War Within. We've got the campaign story, which even retail players who are playing retail currently, like myself, will tell you that the story is lame as fuck. It is, it's lame. Now, the idea is, of course, is they're going to suck us back in, but if Crybaby Anduin was supposed to yank the community back into retail, I'm skeptical. Plus, dude, we've already beat a guy with a sword as big as Jupiter. Like, at what point do we just feel like we're going to be okay? Yes, the gearing's great, and a lot of the systems are kind of cool and streamlined, but the story sucks. And they say that they're going to bring in stuff for casuals like delves, but if you actually listen to the people that prefer a more chill content, they're not looking for more shit to do. They're really looking for a different way to experience the world. And this is where all that stuff comes in, like the art style and, you know, the abuse of flight, I would say, and the actually being in the world with other players and needing other players to help you in that world. Delves don't solve any of that immersion problem. They just give you more shit to do, which is kind of fitting for retail because that's what it is. I think the reason the casual players aren't attached to retail is because retail is completely geared to doing chores to get a higher eye level. and they haven't reimagined or even put themselves in the shoes of people that actually like to be immersed in the world of Warcraft. Maybe these are a smash hit. I hope they are, but they're going to have to be. Can some content creator that's going to do an interview with the WoW devs between now and the launch of War Within, please ask them to show us the community feedback where people were requesting a further complication of the already overcomplicated class design? I mean, where did this idea come from that we needed to fuck with the talents for the 19 millionth time? I mean, this is like an obsession at this point. If anything, you probably needed to do some pruning again. Maybe take a little CC from some people. I mean, there's already shit going on everywhere, and now there's going to be more shit going on everywhere. But as we know, it could not be a new expansion if Blizzard didn't screw with the talents. They just can't do it. They could never not screw with talents. It's what they have to do, and we're just going to have to love them through it. And then you know the recipe for a new expansion. New zones, new dungeons, new raid, and new PvP season. And you know what the interviews with all the devs are going to be. We're so excited. We're so excited. We're so excited. Fine. They're excited about all this stuff they're bringing to you. But are these people? I mean, the nostalgia doesn't really hit for me like it does for a lot of these people. And, you know, Season of Discovery is a little too simple for me. But when you actually take the time to look at community feedback from the classic community on why they prefer it over retail WoW, I don't see how any of this is going to be appealing to them when a lot of it seems to play directly into a lot of their complaints. Even in heroic rating and most certainly in mythic rating, the whole idea is you basically have to execute some overcomplicated rotation while you play Simon Says on the floor during the boss fight and don't get hit with the breath or whatever. They can come get best in slot and Season of Discovery and be way less stressed. And in the end, you say, well, what's the difference between playing retail or classic? Microsoft's getting your $15 a month or whatever. Anyway, I think for those of us in retail who would like to see, especially people like me that would like for PvP to make some comeback, but even just in general, I mean, I just have concerns that there's less and less raid participation. And my argument has been that World of Warcraft needs new players. It needs a ton of them. And if Classic is siphoning away a lot of new players or even old players, it's keeping them from trying retail because they're more than happy here. That sucks. That sucks. I think that to have the community divided like that sucks. And I always thought, I guess maybe naively, that people were going to bounce back and forth. And of course, some people do. But I'll tell you, my friends that are playing Season of Discovery, they haven't even bought this and they have no intention of it. So I'll just end with the same question that I started with. Are y'all coming back, family? Are our classic players who are going to be knee deep in Cataclysm Classic, level 60 Season of Discovery? I mean, this is all coming out at the end of summer. Are they even going to be interested? Are you guys even going to come try War Within? Or is this divide a lot thicker and more permanent than I thought it might be? Time will tell. Oklahoma out.